Good morning. Welcome to the 2021-2022 Mandelbaum Family Lecture Series, a J-Learn program out of the San Diego Center for Jewish Culture at the Lawrence Family JCC, Jacobs Family Campus. My name is Ryan Isaac. I am the Director of Cultural Arts at the San Diego CJC. I would like to thank Mercy and Ron Mandelbaum for their continued generosity in sponsoring these lectures, and a special thanks to our other underwriters as well, who make this series possible year after year. Welcome to our Zoom audience. It's nice to have you with us today. Today, it is a pleasure to welcome Dr. Oded Shezifi, who will be presenting a lecture on the holiday of Purim, interspersed with meditation practice. The title of today's lecture is Between Mordechai and Haman, Mindful Meditations for Purim. Thank you all for being with us today. Thank you, Dr. Shezifi. It's my pleasure now to bring you up.
Thank you, Ryan. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. I would like to firstly thank the JCC for inviting me to give a talk today. And it is going to be a talk about Purim and mindfulness. So let's start. Tonight, all over the world, Jews are going to celebrate the holiday of Purim, and the lecture is going to be about some of the ideas, some of the themes that are embedded in the text that is a very ancient text, 2,500 years. That's quite a lot. What we're going to see by the end of the lecture today is that it's very relevant for our lives today. I'm also going to talk about mindfulness. I am a mindfulness teacher, got certified through the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, and we're going to start by talking a little bit about mindfulness. Just before we start, so we're going to have a straight lecture for about 45 minutes or so. We would also have like two very short mindfulness exercises together. And then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So let's start. So what is mindfulness? That's the big question. So mindfulness is definitely a buzzword and very relevant to our lives now in the 21st century. Mindfulness is really a state of open attention to the present moment. It's a state of mind that we generate in which we observe our stream of consciousness, our physical perceptions, our thoughts, and feelings. Mindfulness also has to do with cultivating compassion and love and kindness. So that's why you have it here on the screen, on the slide. So as I said, it's about a state of mind that on purpose, we generate this state of mind. It's a non-judgmental kind of a state that we generate, and it has to do with our ability to regulate our attention to the present moment, has to do with openness, curiosity, and acceptance of the present moment. Now, it can sound very esoteric, but this is something that you can all do, and you do throughout your lives, through the day. Like for me, for example, I like, one of my hobbies is playing tennis. And when I play tennis, I can play very mindfully, paying attention to what is going on, to the racket, making contact with the ball. And I can also get lost in all kinds of thoughts about my work and this and that. So mindfulness is a state that we can generate, and we generate throughout the days. Okay, let's keep going here. And so I want to talk about two scholars. I learned a lot from both. One on the left, the upper side of the screen, is Dr. John Kavetzin, who really brought mindfulness into mainstream America, into the medical community. he basically what he did was that he asked doctors in the hospital at Massachusetts, Boston, to let him work with patients who suffered from chronic pain. And he introduced them to very simple techniques. And they found that it was very helpful for them. He wrote a couple of books, but his most famous books would be, and you can see the title, it's kind of it's a good title, Full Catastrophe Living, embracing the moment, embracing our lives. We're going to talk today about Purim, which is all about embracing uncertainty. Another book that he wrote, which is a little bit more esoteric, is Whenever You Go, There You Are. So that's John Kavetzin, and when you go home, if you're curious and you go on YouTube, there are many lectures and talks that you can listen to. The other person who just passed away recently is the Zen master, who is also a poet and a monk. It's Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen master. And he also was one of those scholars who brought mindfulness into the West. So I would say both of them really brought mindfulness into the West. We're talking the second half of the 20th century. He wrote many books. One fascinating book is a book called Anger. It's about really working with impatient frustration and anger internally, and without being reactive when we get into those state of mind. Another book, he wrote many books, but another book that I would recommend would be Peace is Every Step. Again, basically bringing mindfulness to the present moment. We see a photo of him down here with Martin Luther King. So mindfulness, very big now. We live at a time where technology helps us through the pandemic, helped us a lot, but also it can also get us to a place where we are bombarded by information. So we need to generate those mindful moments. So that's kind of in general, I'm talking about mindfulness, but I'm going also to explain how mindfulness is also how it relates to Judaism, and how in the Jewish tradition there are many moments of mindfulness, mostly surrounding a celebration of holidays, and of course celebrating Shabbat. The root Shabbat, the Hebrew root Shin Bet Taf, has to do with sitting down, stopping, which is really, the whole idea is really, it's a mindful idea. It's about mindfulness. Heschel suggests that Shabbat, it's about time. So we have we have a block of time, 6 days, a block of time of doing, and then we have a time that is dedicated for sitting and slowing down. So, and there are many other parallels, and we'll get into them throughout the talk today. So, John Kavetzin and Thich Nhat Hanh. And now, when it comes to Thich Nhat Hanh, as I said, for me, it's also a personal story. When I was a psychology student, I studied a lot of theory, but I was also looking for ways to regulate my emotions. So I started with Sound Tai Chi, with those slow movements. And then I came across Thich Nhat Hanh's writings. And then I realized, I guess it was a kind of a personal miracle for me, that there is a monastery that is close to me, right here in the mountains in Escondido, Deer Park Monastery. So I had the opportunity to see Thich Nhat Hanh in the monastery a couple of times in retreats, talking about mindfulness. Basically, when you go to the monastery, they do a lot of practice that has to do with generating those mindful moments. It can be by walking out in the forest. You can see Thich Nhat Hanh leading here the monks and lay people in a mindful walk, very quiet walk, paying attention. You can try that when you go out. There is a nice park right here around us. just walking around, looking at the trees, paying attention to your breathing. It's really a wonderful kind of an exercise. They also do mindful eating. Again, connecting it to Judaism. In Judaism, when we eat, we say a blessing. We're supposed to say the blessing and to really connect to the food. And so mindful eating has to do with paying attention to slowing down, paying attention, savoring the moment. This is a photo of the meditation hall. When you get there to the monastery, you will see the sign. It says, "I have arrived." It's true, you have arrived to the monastery, but it's really also a allegorical kind of a message. You have arrived to the present moment. This is important because when we talk about Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther, we talk a lot about messages that has to do with not necessarily true history, but with allegorical messages and wisdom that can be very useful right now, 2022. So what else do we have here? We have this idea, this is it. So just coming to the moment. The circle represents infinity, the ultimate dimension of infinity, no beginning, no ending, which we also, of course, have in Judaism, where in Kabbalah, the divine is represented by infinity. So as you know, I'm also a psychologist, and the truth is that in psychology, now if you go to talk to a psychologist, they will talk to you about mindfulness and about using mindfulness to help oneself with regulating emotions and with the different issues that we are facing throughout our lives. Mindfulness is big now in psychology, mainstream psychology. So I thought I'd bring here also the scientific side to mindfulness. There is research about mindfulness, but this is something that you want to be familiar with. So we all have a window of stress tolerance, and we want to throughout our lives, throughout the day, we want to try and stay at this optimal arousal zone right there in the middle, and we can get dysregulated. It can happen to us that we get dysregulated. We can get hyper aroused. So when we get really emotional, or maybe we get into a fight-flight kind of a situation. We have anxiety, outbursts, we get angry, agitated. That would be hyper arousal, like a volcano. I don't know if you know, but I also work with children and I teach play therapy. So children, of course, you need to simplify everything to them. So it's the volcano and it's kind of, the ice, the snow. That would lead us to hyper arousal when we get to a place where we kind of we freeze, or we have flat affect, or we feel numb, withdrawn, again to the severe emotions of dissociation and shame and shutdown and so forth. You have here the opossum, so that's an opossum playing dead. So that's kind of, oops, an enemy I'm playing dead. And then you have a nice drawing from one of Darwin's books of a cat who is kind of in a fight kind of situation, fight-flight situation. So that brings the scientific piece into the lecture. You have the logo of the American Psychological Association is the Greek letter psi. It's about the psyche. And I'm going to link the psyche into mindfulness in a sec. So let's keep going here. So now let's engage in a very brief mindfulness practice. So I invite you now to, for you, please have a seat, comfortable seat on your chairs. At home, for the audience at home, you are welcome to lie down. if you'd like. And we are going to do very simple exercise that has to do with conscious breathing. So, what I would ask you to do now is just to sit in your chairs comfortably, unclench your body, and ground yourself. You can ground your feet on the ground. You can feel your sit bones making contact with the chairs. If you feel comfortable, you can shut your eyes, or you can just have a gaze downwards, soft gaze, 45 degrees angle down. With your palms, you can put them next to you or gently place them on your lap. And lower your shoulders. And now just bring your consciousness to your breathing. You don't want to manipulate your breath. You just want to bring your awareness to breathing. When you breathe in, say to yourself in your mind, in. And when you breathe out, say to yourself in your mind, out. The way to observe the breathing, it can be done in two ways. One, you can pay attention to your bellies, breathing into the bellies. Your belly inflates and deflates. And the other one would be to pay attention to air flowing through your nostrils. Just watching your breathing, saying in when you breathe in, and out when you breathe out. No need to manipulate your breath. Just paying attention. You can also pay attention to your body, physical sensations, just the sensations you have in your body, with the body making contact with the chair, to sounds surrounding you. Breathing in, breathing out. In a few seconds, I'll bring this exercise to an end. You will hear the bell, and then you can slowly open your eyes and make a smooth, slow transition back to the room. And slowly you can bring your attention back to the room, shifting back from a mindful state of being. We're going to shift back to a state of doing. For me, it will be talking. For you, it will be lots of thinking. So this is basically conscious breathing. And it can be done really anywhere. You can take a little break and bring your attention to your breathing, doing this restart to the system. You don't need to be like Homer Simpson. You don't need to sit like a lotus with your hands like in an hour and chant. Just sit down on a chair. It works. So let's talk a little bit about Jewish mindfulness. So Jewish mindfulness, it's really integrating Judaism and those mindful, the mindfulness tradition and Buddhism, blending them together. And in Judaism, we have many moments throughout the Jewish year where we can celebrate and we can get to the present moment. As I said, Shabbat, lighting the candles on Shabbat. Of course, Passover, which is right around the corner, with all the symbolic meaning when it comes to the Passover Seder, with the holiday of Sukkot, sitting inside a shelter, pondering on what does it mean to be sheltered by the divine, with Hanukkah, which became a very popular holiday in America, a holiday that really makes us ask questions about one's identity. Many moments, of course, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. So many moments where we can cultivate mindfulness in Judaism. Of course, we have the blessing, the Shehecheyanu blessing in Judaism, that will be said today before we read the Megillah. When it is said for me, when I'm at shul and the blessing is said, I really try to do my mindfulness and breathe and really kind of bring myself to the moment. So Jewish mindfulness. A few more things about Jewish mindfulness. So, down here you can see, by the way, so I promised to get back to psychology. So psyche from Latin has to do with the breath and soul and life. And in Hebrew, the word is nefesh, which goes back to early ancient languages from the Near East, such as the Akkadian and other languages. So nefesh also has to do with life and with breathing. Here we have a few things from the Bible that I like to always point out when I talk about Jewish mindfulness. So from Genesis, the divine formed humans from the dust of the earth and blew into their nostrils the breath of life, and they became a living being. And then in the morning, every morning when Jews go to shul to pray the morning services, shacharit, and they go through Psalm 150, they will say that all the breath praise the Lord, hallelujah. So it's really about those neshama, which is it's his soul, but it's also very close to the word neshima, which is breath. Another important thing that we have in Judaism in the Bible is those moments of mindfulness when we will see that someone is facing something important and they call, "Here I am." So you have this nice painting by Chagall, and here is Moses, the leader of the Jewish people, and he's right there in front of the divine in nature, and he's calling, "Here I am." Then he asks the divine, "Hey, what's your name? You want me to go back and talk to the Israelites, and what am I going to tell them?" So the divine, that's one of my favorite parts in the Torah. He says, "Oh, I am what I am." So the divine is all about being. It's about this presence. It's about the process. By the way, if you find it intriguing and interesting, so I would recommend to go online and check those organizations. One is the Institute for Jewish Spirituality in New York. I told you that's how I got certified as a Jewish mindfulness teacher. And the other one is Oneself, that is based in Israel. And you can learn more about Jewish mindfulness. All right, so now Purim, right? So we're making kind of a shift here, and but we're going to integrate everything together. And as I said, at the end there would be time for Q&A. So keep your questions for the end of the lecture. So Purim, a very interesting holiday. It's about a festival. It's about a carnival. Interestingly, there are many, many cultures around the world who celebrates and have carnivals and festivals. Some people say, hey, you know, Purim is a bit different compared to other Jewish holidays. We have here nice photos of carnivals. They are called in Israel Adlo Yada parades. We have some parades here, black and white, from the early years of the state of Israel, and some the ones in color just from recent times. So we go out, we go and celebrate, we go to parades. Tonight there are going to be, in many places, they are going to have like a Purim spiel and a lot of festivities and a lot of sweets and wine and a lot of noise when we read the Megillah, the scroll of Esther. So the holiday of Purim. So the holiday of Purim, it's like, so we read this story, which feels like when you read it, when you read the book of Esther, it sounds like a spoof. But it's really something that anthropologists, they argue that in many, many cultures, for many, many years, there were holidays like that. And those holidays, they serve a purpose that will be to get to a place where we can play with the idea of hiding behind masks, the idea of how we play around with social roles, and those would be celebrated in many, many cultures. This is a mask that was found, I think, quite recently in Israel, and look, it is a 9,000-year-old, so it's really from the earliest time of human civilization. So it served humans from a long time ago in different rituals. Of course, you know, in psychology, the word personality has to do with the word persona, that has to do with theatrical mask in Greek, and in Jungian psychology, there is a big there is the big concept of having a mask and how we all wear, you know, those social masks when we are out there in the world. So those are important messages that are relevant for us throughout the generations, and they are played out tonight if we pay attention really to the story of Purim. So the story of Purim, of course, I'm not going to go over all the story. 10 chapters in the book of Esther. We have this king, Achashverosh, who loved to have those big festivals and to get drunk, I guess. It's very extreme. All the characters in the story are very extreme. We have Mordechai, we have Haman, we have Esther, the queen. She saves the Jews when she goes to the king, Achashverosh, and she tells him about what is going to happen and what Haman was planning. You have here stamps that were issued in Israel just recently in 2019, and you can see in those stamps are really about the four things that four commandments, mitzvot, that we're supposed to do throughout the holiday. One would be to give each other a Purim baskets and have a sense of community, to also include the needy, gifts for the needy, to have a banquet, to have a festival, to have a good party, and to listen to the reading of the book of Esther. It's a bit difficult because there is a lot of noise. If you go to a shul tonight or tomorrow morning, a lot of noise, a lot is going on, but you're sitting there, and hopefully after this talk, you would also have your mindful moment thinking about, hey, what are we reading here? And we have here also like nice drawings from a Dutch Bible from the 1700s. We can see down on the left Haman leading Mordechai in the streets of Shushan. On the right, we have Esther approaching Ahasuerus. And up there at the bottom, we have Haman being hanged. It's kind of in the back. He was planning to hang Mordechai and ended up being hanged. So there is a little circle there, and it says in the Hebrew, "V'na'afochu," which is a big thing in Purim. "V'na'afochu," it means that things are kind of upside down. We are celebrating opposites. There was this plan of a person who, when you read very closely, really is a racist or anti-Semite when he's having his plan and he's talking to Ahasuerus in the Megillah. And so he has a plan to destroy, he and his contributors have a plan to destroy the Jewish people, and it ends up with the Jewish people being able to fight back and destroying Haman and what he represents. So there is a lot here, and I think that probably some of you know more than others, but this is a very condensed timeline from Adam to modern Israel. And when it comes to the book of Esther and Purim, we're talking at a time after, so I put it there in the red box, after the destruction of the first temple. So there is the exile, and the Jews, they go east to Babylonia, and then later on Persia becomes the big empire there. Cyrus the Great, he let the Israelites go back and build the second temple, and that's the time where supposedly the story takes place, the story of Purim. In 332, Alexander the Great conquers the region, and another empire comes to the region, and Hellenism comes in. Later on, we have, of course, the story of the Maccabees who were fighting the Hellenism and so forth. So what's important here is that we are talking the time of those time in exile in the diaspora. This book is telling us a story of Jews in the diaspora at around maybe 500 BCE. But what's important, and we'll talk about it in a second, is that it goes back actually to the times of the Exodus and to a nation called Amalek. And it goes back also to a time where the United Kingdom was established by King Saul. I'll tie everything together. It's a hang cliff. All right, here we go. So when it comes to the history, there is not a lot. We have the book of Esther. Scholars say that there is not a lot out there when it comes to archaeological findings or other sources, external sources, we call them, like Greek sources and Persian or Babylonian sources, not a lot. So there is arguments going back and forth about how real is the story. But most scholars believe that when it comes to Ahasuerus, it is really Xerxes, the king Xerxes the Great. And at that time, Xerxes had an empire. You can see in the yellow right there, on the left side at the top, a big empire. And the book of Esther starts with Ahasuerus, who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. You can see over there the big map. You can see the city of Susan, the capital the Persian Empire. So that's a little bit about the time. It's a long time ago. We're talking 2,500 years. So now let's talk about Amalek. So just a raise of hands. Who knows what's Amalek here? Some of you? Okay. So let's talk about Amalek. So Amalek, it's a nation, an ancient nation. And the story, there are many, many stories in the Bible. And in the rabbinic tradition, we are following Amalek throughout the development, the evolution of Judaism and the story of the Jewish people. So it goes back, actually, when it goes back, it really goes back to a time where the Israelites, they left, and you can read it, you read it about it in the Bible. They left Egypt, and on the way, the Amalekites, what happened was that they came and they attacked the Israelites, but the way they attacked them, they came from the back and they attacked the weak, the women, the children, and so they were taking advantage of the Israelites. And for that reason, they got a very bad reputation, Amalek. The Amalekites, they got a very bad reputation for what they did. There was this big war of Joshua. There is the story of Joshua, of Moses lifting his hands, and then the warriors, the Israelites warriors, they see the hands, and with the help of the divine, they fight the Amalekites. Later on in the book of Samuel, another clash between the Amalekites and the Jews, and King Saul, the first king of a unified kingdom, is captured the king of Amalek, but he doesn't execute him. So Samuel gets really, really mad with him and say, why didn't you kill the king, King Agag? King Agag, it's important, King Agag. So then Samuel, he executes Agag. I just, this is so big. I said, we see the relevance for our days. So I just brought some characters from Hollywood, Hollywood is making a fortune out of playing with the good and the bad, and really more than the bad, really the ultimate evil. So I brought those two villains, Darth Vader and the Joker on the one hand, and then of course, the superheroes, Superman or Wonder Woman on the other side. There is also a picture of a baby here. Maybe some of you know who this baby is, but I promise you that we will meet the baby soon in a couple of slides down the road. But it has to do with Amalek. So this is the story of Amalek. So this is as I said, the two drawings here with the battle with the Amalekites in the desert, and then executing King Agag. And Samuel said, as your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And the rabbinic idea is that we have to fight Amalek. By the way, the book of Esther, it was the last book that got into the canon for many reasons. One of the reasons is that as you flip through the book, God is not mentioned in the book. You have to really look for it. And in all kinds of ways, it is hidden in the book. It's the miracle is really a miracle of humans taking action. So who is the baby, you're asking, right? So the baby is Adolf Hitler, and many would say that he represents Amalek in modern times. And another Nazi leader was Adolf Eichmann, who was brought to justice in the state of Israel in 1961. That was the only time that an El Al plane landed in Argentina. So you probably know that Eichmann and many others, after the war, they escaped through what's called the Red Lines. They escaped down to South America, and they lived there. And Eichmann was brought to justice. And in that regard, the state of Israel was active in I can say, for fighting really Amalek in modern times. So you see, Purim, big festival. I hope I'm not going to ruin your parties tonight, but there is something big here, big messages hidden in the text, hidden in the tradition. So from Esther 9, we have here this idea of opposites happened, right? Opposites happened. And it defines, so the whole book defines rationality. That's why I put a drawing of one of my favorite painters, Escher. You look at Escher's paintings and you go like, it just doesn't stick, right? So that's the idea, is we cannot really hold the depth when it comes to hate and envy, and really it's more than the bad and the good here. It's really hard to hold those ideas in the mind. And in Megillah, which is a text, a tractate Megillah, it's the Talmud, compiled from, let's say, the 3 through 7th, maybe 6th centuries CE. They talk about how one should become intoxicated, drink wine, so that they do not know to distinguish between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. So I'm not advocating to get drunk tonight. And in fact, in Maimonides, Rambam, he said, you drink until you get kind of tired, and so it's really about reflecting about these opposites and the dialectical tension between Mordechai, what Mordechai represents, righteous Mordechai, and what Haman represents, the evil, the evilness, the darkness. So it's kind of like a little bit wrapping up. We're kind of getting slowly to the end of the talk. So what's important here, again, you have the negative and the positive, the good and the bad. You have Thich Nhat Hanh and John Kavetzin, celebration, the carnival. But on your right side, you have the Shema that is said in the morning, the Shema. And it's very interesting. Why? Because according to Kabbalistic texts, when it comes to the Shema, we say in the morning, we say the Shema, and then we say that you shall love the divine with all your heart and with all your soul, which is the word nefesh. Now, heart in Hebrew, you can see just there in the Hebrew for the ones who know Hebrew, ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha. Levavecha, it's plural. Libcha, I think it would be like heart. So it's really, we should translate it, you should love God with all your hearts. So the Kabbalists are saying, the Hasidic masters are saying, we have two hearts. We have one heart that has to do with the positive, with the Yetzer HaTov, with the good inclination, and we have another heart in us that has to do with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And every day we put those into play out there in the world. So this is really, really important, and I think it's a beautiful teaching in Judaism. Again, we are here, good and bad. In the story, we are facing the worst. And throughout the history of humankind, there are times where we are facing the worst, right? And also in modern times, also today in our times. So just a quick note again, because I'm a psychologist. So Sigmund Freud, a Viennese Jew, he brought those ideas of the inclinations, the two inclinations, into psychology and into the psychoanalytic movement. And you can see him here with his colleagues. Most of them were Jewish, interestingly enough. Also another a very famous photo of him and his daughter, Anna, the last year when they're leaving Vienna. He's very, very old, he's in his 80s, and he leaves to London to find refuge. And he's facing, in a way, Haman himself. So in any case, they brought it to psychology and to psychoanalysis with introducing those two drives, they call them. They were translated in English into instincts. It's not a good translation. Drives has to do with yetzer, same thing. Yetzer, something that drives us. So we have the sexual drive, which is basically a binding drive that binds us together. He got a bad reputation about sexuality, but really it's deeper than just, sexuality. It's something way deeper that ingrained in us, and then a destructive drive. So it was brought into the modern practice of psychology. By the way, now I'm kind of talking and I'm not sure that I made the connections. So the Haman in the Megillah is Haman Agagi. So he's a descendant of Agag, the king that Saul didn't kill, remember? So I'm just basically saying that you see how there are those, it's being repeated, the fights between Haman and Mordechai. Now, if you want to go really, really deeper in the story, it goes back to the days of Esau and Jacob, and to when they are still in the womb, they are fighting in the womb, and Amalek is really the grandson of Esau, Esav. So it goes back to Jacob and Esau. So before we wrap up with an exercise, I want to mention another important idea in Judaism, but not just Judaism. In all Abrahamistic traditions, the idea of a messianic age. And again, you have nice stamps, Israeli stamps. You have the stamps of the most famous or most important, but there are many and all important, but the prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. You have, and then up there you have those stamps that represent those times, the times where there will be a global peace. Same with the coin there, a time where the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. The infant will play with the cobra. It's an aspiration, of course. Aspiration, very important in the liturgy and in theology, Jewish theology, and as I said, also other monotheistic theologies. Here you have the Torah and the cover that says Drachea Drachei Noam v'chol netivotea Shalom. We sing it when we take the Torah back to the ark every Shabbat, basically saying that the Torah, and I think that's really important because when it is practiced in the right way, it's all about the Torah. The Torah path is a path of peace. That's what it says. All the paths are path of peace. So we are thriving to a time of peace. We are working for a time of peace, but we also are realistic. That's maybe why we need to drink a little wine tonight. We are realistic that in life there are ups and downs. So let's finish up the talk with an exercise. There was a lot here. I gave you so much. I hope this was interesting for you. And but let's finish. As I said, mindfulness is also about compassion and loving kindness. This is really the antidote to when we talk about this ultimate evilness, to hate and envy. In Buddhism, by the way, there are three poisons. It's hate, it's envy, and it's ignorance. So let's do another exercise. So again, just have a comfortable seat. I know there was so much going on, so just, bring yourself to the present. Have a comfortable seat in the chair. If you are at home, please feel free. You can lie down. It's even better. And the first thing we always do, we bring our attention to our breathing. So just pay attention to your body. Breathing is a miracle. It happens all the time. When we are asleep, when we are awake, a lot of times we are not aware that we are breathing. So bring awareness to your breathing. Your belly rising and falling, air flowing through the nostrils. And I'm going to read some statements. You can repeat the statements in your mind. You can close your eyes if you'd like. You can focus on those images that I have here, lots of different kind of images on the screen. May I be free from danger. May I have mental happiness. Just repeat it in your mind, wishing comfort to yourself. It can be done also, if you'd like, you can think about a loved one and generate kavanah in Hebrew, aim, the blessing to them. May I have physical happiness. May I have ease of well-being. May I be free of pain and sorrow. May I hold my pain with mercy and compassion. May I forgive myself from past mistakes. May I love myself just as I am. May I be kind and patient with myself and others. May I accept things as they are. May I see things clearly. And in a couple of seconds, you will hear the bell, and it will be a sign for you to slowly bring yourself back to the room. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for all Israel and all humanity. Amen. So I want to say Toda Rabba, and what you have here is, as I said, I teach play therapy, which is a form of therapy for young children, and this is a nice slide about loving oneself. If you're hungry, if she's hungry, just feed her. If she cries, comfort her. If she makes a mistake, forgive her. If one falls over, just help them back to their feet. So thank you, and have a happy Purim. So I think that now we will open it up for any questions from the audience. Yes, please.
I guess I didn't understand why you must get so drunk you don't know the difference between Haman and Mordechai. What's the purpose of that?
So the question that I'm repeating the questions for the Zoom audience. So why should you get so drunk to not know the difference between Haman and Mordechai? So in a nutshell, that's basically that's the lecture tonight. And remember, I put a drawing of Escher. So the whole idea is, when we really dig deep into the Megillah, is that there are, when it comes to existence, when it comes to the polarities that Haman and Mordechai represent, it's really, really hard to hold it in our minds. So how are we going to hold it in our minds? So I would recommend doing mindful exercises and maybe drinking just a glass of wine. But of course, it can be a good excuse to get drunk. So thank you. Yes.
So the more accurate Freudian duality would be to generate and destroy. Those would be the drives.
So the question is about the Freudian drives. I mentioned Sigmund Freud drive theory. So yes, one force is a force that has to do with binding and connecting, the sexual drive, connecting things together, bringing things together, and the other one has to do with tearing things apart. And the idea is that those forces, they take part in life. And of course, when it comes to, so I can talk now for an hour, but when it comes to Freudian ideas, there was always issues with experimental psychology, and then with explaining the terms and putting them actually into experiments because they are so deep. So I hope this kind of answers your question. We are led by a life force, we can say, and a death force. So, and I think that those ideas are also in other traditions and cultures, that we have those two forces that has to do with living. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, please.
Is Purim a Hebrew word, and what does it mean?
So the question is about Purim and what does it mean? So Purim has to do with Pur, lot, and it has to do with Haman throwing the dice, you would say, on the day when it is going to happen. Now, I'm not sure. I think that it's a Persian word that penetrated, that got into the Hebrew. Now, I'm not sure, but I can tell you that in the Megillah, in the scroll, there are many, many Persian words that are embedded in the Megillah. So, so Purim has to do with the lot that Haman drew when he was planning his evil plan. Yes. Other questions? Yes.
Sleeping and mindfulness. How can mindfulness help us sleep?
Okay. So the question is about sleeping and mindfulness, which is a very good question. Again, as I said, mindfulness is big now, and if you go to practitioners who specialize in helping folks who have sleeping difficulties, they will recommend different exercises that can be done, which is basically what we've done here: conscious breathing, lying down until one falls asleep, drifts into sleep. What I can share with you is that that's my psychological hat. I wear different hats. It's good for Purim, right? So my psychological hat is that we have a lot of problems with sleeping in modern times. In fact, the psychiatric book, the DSM, has now the part that talks about sleeping issues is getting bigger and bigger from one edition to the next. Maybe it has to do with technology and all the stuff that is going on. But a good question. Again, I can talk here for an hour, but I can also say that if you are going to drink a lot of wine tonight, it's not necessary that you're going to get a good sleep. You will fall asleep, but you're not going to get the deep sleep that one needs. Yeah. Okay, good question.
I have one last question.
Yes.
Did Esther like Ahasuerus, or did she sacrifice her life?
Whoa, I get all those very good questions here. This is a good question. So again, I'm going to repeat the question for the Zoom audience about Esther. Did she like Ahasuerus, the king, or what? How did you phrase?
She sacrificed
Oh, she sacrificed her life. So so basically the story is about Mordechai, who is asking her to help the Jewish people, and the way, she gets to be the queen, she's invited to the palace. Mordechai is kind of telling her, hey, you should get into this pagan with other women, and this is very deep, and this is another reason for the book the rabbi is kind of asking, are we going to include the book to canonize it as part of the Tanakh? So this is a very good question, but she's considered definitely, like Joseph, she's considered someone who saved the Jewish people. So good question. We have one more? No? Okay, well, thank you everyone. Happy Purim.
Dr. Shezifi, thank you very much for today's lecture. It was eye-opening and a great way to start Purim. Happy Purim, everyone. And I think as Dr. Shezifi prescribes, you can enjoy Purim with a mindful meditation or by meditating on a cocktail, or both, I think. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone in Zoom land for being a part of this, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. Happy Purim.